Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the PGPMAX Industry Dialogue. The Industry Dialogue is a thought leadership initiative run by the Max community. And in the sixth edition of the PGPMAX Industry Dialogue, we discuss the future of work. We have an amazing panel of PGPMAX alumni from HR, staffing, and people practices joining us today to engage in this discussion. The dialogue will last for 60 minutes, and we will then open up for the Q&A. To list in your questions for the Q&A, please make use of the Q&A box, which is available towards the bottom of your screen. And we'll be happy to share this with our panelists as we progress with the session. Now, for the Q&A today, we will limit it to the program topic alone. If there is a program-related question or an admission-related query, please feel free to take this offline with us. I'll share a booking link to book a one-to-one conversation with the admission office in the chat box in a while. Please make use of this link for any program or admission-related query. That's it. Introducing our panelists today, we have with us Lakshmipati Aitha. Lakshmipati is an alumnus of the class of 21 and is a global corporate head of HR at Product. Welcome, Lakshmipati. We also have Manu Saigal with us. Manu is an alumna of class of 22 and is the director with Adeco, where she handles general staffing, the largest business unit within Adeco. Welcome, Manu. We also have with us Sucharita Singh. Sucharita is an alumna of the class of 19 and is the Director of People Practices for India and Australia at EA. Welcome, Sucharita. Our moderator for today's event is Anand Venkatramakrishnan. Anand is part of the current cohort, the class of 23, and is with the Indian Navy, where he is a Joint Director. Welcome, Anand. Anand, thank you for taking the time for hosting this event and much looked forward event on the future of work. So that said, let me welcome you and hand over the event to you, all yours from now.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all panelists. So it's a proud privilege. So ladies and gentlemen, whomsoever were logged in, we welcome you all as part of ISB fraternity for the present series of Industry Dialogue. We are here to engage the senior industry leaders as part of this program, where we discuss the most compelling issues and developments and get some great insights into how they will be shaping in the future. So today's topic, what we have in hand, is a billion-dollar topic. Some of us, rather most of us, are quite intrigued by it. Is in the era of evolving technology and expectations, both from the employer end and the employees, which way we are heading and what is the future of work. So the topic itself is interesting, and to shape our discussions, we have a great set of panelists. So it is my privilege to introduce them to you. So we start with Sucharita. Sucharita Singh, she is an ISB alum, as Thomas has brought out, class of 19. She is associated with Electronic Arts for the past 18 years, and presently she is Director of People Practices for India and Australia. She is highly passionate about driving programs related to talent development, and she has been a strong advocate of diversity, inclusion, and equality in her organization. Presently, she is settled with her family in Hyderabad, and yes, she is Hyderabadi to the core, and loves spending time with her family. Yes, integrity, achievement, and happiness are her top values. She holds an MPhil in psychology from University of Delhi. Set the bar high for yourself, keep upgrading your skills, and power to jump across the bar will come to you soon, passion. She is driven by purpose of striving for excellence in all aspects of her life. And Sucharita, we look forward to hear from you with the great background which you have, a lot of insights into how the future of work is going to shape. The next panelist is Lakshmipati Aitha. His short form, he says, is LI. In the present era of EV, it's going to be a very catchy name soon, but that's for another day. But today, he is going to give us our insights from his digging in his 22 years of professional experience in various industry sectors, across the sectors, IT, pharma, and skill development. You name it, he has had a handle in all those sectors. He has worked in leading global organizations like Oracle, Novartis, Dr. Reddy's, to name a few. And presently, at Product, he holds a position of Assistant Vice President, Human Resources. He is armed with a postgraduate diploma in Business Administration and specialization in HR. His expertise lies in compensation benefits, merger and acquisition, HR service delivery, and he is a certified coach and a mentor. So with that credentials, needless to say, he is going to add a lot of pedigree to the conversation. And we welcome you to the panel and look forward to hearing from you. The third panelist is Ms. Manu Sehgal. Manu is an ISB alum class of 22, and with over 20 years of experience in P&L management, sales leadership, go-to-market strategy, Manu has managed large-scale businesses. She has been with Adeco for the past 8 years, where she has held positions including leading professional staffing, managed services, and permanent player divisions. Presently, she is in her present role. She is a director, general staffing, Pan India, where she is responsible for leading Adeco's industry into general staffing business, oversee operations, and driving growth in this region. Prior to Adeco, she has worked in organizations in Wipro and Birlasoft, where she was managing mission critical IT software. She is an engineer holding a BE in electronics and communication from Mysore University. What is interesting to note is she started in the core technology and pivoted to HR, and from in 8 years, she is now leading Adeco Pan India. Manu, we look forward to hearing some first-hand insight on the challenges in handling evolving technology in present HR landscape. Thank you, panelists. We welcome you all. And about me, I am Commander Anand from Indian Navy. I've spent over 20 years in Navy, served across 5 warships. I'm an electrical engineer, specializes in building control systems for the submarines. And where I come from, HR is more of an ecosystem, it is an immersion. So today I am also an intrigued listener who's as eager to hear from all these panelists what is the future of work and how in the present era we are going to see technology and other expectations shape the future. To name anything, any challenges, COVID, work from home, geopolitics, there's a lot of challenges which in the today's era. And the Gen Z is a very interesting topic. Their expectations are different than what we see and what we can expect. So without wasting much time, I would welcome the questions from the panelists. So what is the future of work? So I start with Sucharita first. What is starting from the nature of work? There's a lot of debate on what is the best format for companies to operate. While in person, remote, or hybrid, there are multiple options which all these companies are grappling with. But not everyone is sure of what is the best way forward. So, what is in your view, should senior executives consider making a choice, and how should they make the decision? Your views, please.
Okay, thank you, Anand. Thank you for setting the context and the stage and all the lovely introductions. So in my opinion, I think for all of us, our employment landscape has dramatically reshaped. What worked for all of us pre-2020 is no longer the same. So there has been a shift in terms of how we are managing our personal and professional life, the focus on mental and physical wellness, pursuing and expanding skills, which in some cases are different from our core job, looking for flexibility and making choices, especially when it involves saving commute time, travel choices, etc. When all these things are being considered by the organization, they are focused on meeting their business priorities and also at the same time maintaining employee productivity, retention of high-skilled employees. And all these things are happening all together. And to be honest, with all these changes happening together, it is very hard to predict that there is like a standard solution which can be like, executed and implemented, and how it is impacting the workspace. Now, when you ask this question as to what is the best way, like how our senior executives are considering making a choice, these are some of the things that I try to think about from an organizational perspective, or how when I'm contributing towards the decision making is first, what is the business priority for the organization? How are the revenues impacted and the investment impacted based on the decision the organization plans to work on? What work model which aligns with the company's strategic goals to drive collaboration, interaction, productivity, employee engagement? Now, giving an example of EA, now, as you all know, EA is a gaming company. So to make interesting and engaging games, it's also very important that people are able to come together and discuss the concept and are able to work together in person. Things have changed. Our companies try to work around as to how we can still drive that high level of collaboration and come up with amazing products and gamers engagement with related to our games. So all these things together, it also means that there has been an investment in our infrastructure to support the work model, whether it is a remote hybrid, there is a technology investment to support the work models. The impact of real estate cost maintaining an office with all amenities when we are currently working in the hybrid model is also an important aspect to be considered. And at the same time, at the end of it, it's also about the communication process being adopted by the organization and the executives, which is being translated or cascaded to the organization in terms of the culture. So I would say that it is an ongoing process. There is no, in my opinion, there is no standard solution that I can say that, yes, this is what we can offer and this is what would work, because it varies from one organization to the other. That's my
Thank you,
point.
Suchari.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suchari. Probably you have set the discussion. You come from an industry which is not so very conventional, gaming industry. So your perspectives give a lot of thoughts from where you come from, how the industry sees work from home. Lakshmipati, probably you have worked across the sectors, cutting across most of the sectors. So your views on the nature of work and how do you see what model would suit the companies?
I think the expectations are very specific to a couple of industries like IT or IT services. I think predominantly most of the industries still operate 5-day week or a 6-day week. I don't think so there is any such expectation from workforce from apart from IT and IT services, or maybe a couple of industries which I don't have purview to. In my view, the expectation still continues to be there while companies are pushing for resources to come back to workplace. Nevertheless, I mean, there is still this element of trust, certain amount of moonlighting happening, because of options of work from home. Hybrid still seems to be the current moving trend. Early this week, a couple of large Indian IT companies have already declared asking their workforce to come back to office all 5 days a week. So like Sucharita said, I don't think so there is a one size fits all kind of a solution. Each of us will have to evaluate what is right for us on both fronts, I would say. As an employer, we are expected to see if this allows me to reduce my operational expenses and then manage my productivity is one way of looking at it. I still want to be skeptical. Are my employees, in terms of integrity towards the organization still stays intact? These are certain cultural aspects that from an employer standpoint, we are expected to, think or re-strategize or contextually we need to take a decision. From an employee standpoint, from an individual standpoint, again, there is a mixed reaction. I kind of got an opportunity to interact with multiple folks with multiple interests. There are certain people who say all 5 days, it is important. I come to office, I get to learn a lot from my peers. It does help me learn new things. It allows me to grow well. There are certain set of people where I have met, they said, no, it's important for me that, I need to balance my workforce. I have younger kids at home. I need to balance, or parents at home, I need to balance. It allows me the flexibility from a policy standpoint. So there are mixed reactions. So from an employer standpoint also, there are pros and cons. From an employee standpoint also, there are pros and cons. So what suits good for each of us is something that we need to kind of take it.
Yeah, thank you, Lakshmi. Manu, you from where you are, you see both sides of the story. You are hiring people who are looking for with expectations, and you have employees whose expectations are probably on the other side of the spectrum. So you have a tough job of balancing both expectations, and your views on this probably will add more spice to the conversation. And I'll say probably sum it up. What are your views on this? Where do you see the future of work in this evolving landscape?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anand. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here on this discussion, something very close to my heart. And I completely echo the thoughts that Sucharita and Lakshmipati have shared. Coming from a Adecco perspective, I think the future of work acknowledges, like Lakshmipati was saying, that there's no one-size-fits-all approach how companies should operate. There's always been a constant debate between in-person, remote, hybrid models, which are ongoing. But the best way forward depends on various factors to each organization, and it could be different for every organization. So what the management has to consider is the various what are those key aspects which are important to make a choice, be it the nature of the business or the type of work that our employees are performing. For example, if we are looking at manufacturing and if a person is supposed to be working at the plant, I don't think there is a work from home option there. And likewise, if you are in a technology sector and you are remotely connected and it's more output based, one could work from home, never be in the office at all. And we have seen both sides, extreme ends, and some people who are just looking at the hybrid work model. So some of these choices, like I said, based on the nature of business or the type of work that the employees are performing, also employees' preferences, their well-being, the productivity, how much of collaboration is required when you are doing the work. So while all of this is from an organization and from an employee standpoint, I think another critical set is also whether there's an availability of technological infrastructure. Is that supporting all these decisions? That's more important. And what would be the impact of any decision that you're making on the culture, the organizational culture, or the impact on employee engagement or retention? So to make the decision, what we do at Adecco and what we also help our clients do is by conducting assessments, gathering feedback from employees, being open to experimenting and adapting on the outcomes. So it is essential to strike a balance between the organizational need and the employee expectation while you remain agile to respond to the future changes in the work landscape. And to make the final decision, I think it is important that one involves all the key stakeholders from different departments and different levels within the organization. And through this transparency and through this collaboration, when decision-making process is done, there's a lot more buy-in and a lot more ease when you are implementing a decision. What is also interesting is that some of these things, these new models that are coming up, which are very different from the traditional models of workplace, they are new and not tried in the past by a particular organization, let's say. I think it is also interesting to know that maybe a pilot or a trial period may help testing the various feasibility and various effectiveness of different formats before you commit to a permanent choice that you want to make as an organization. So also regularly reviewing and reassessing the decisions that one has made would also allow the organizations to adjust and optimize the operational model over time. So it is not that you have decided once and that is it. Stick to it. It's evolving process, and it's over a period of time that you strike the right balance. You get to the optimized operational models. So that's my take on that, Anand.
Yeah, you touched upon a couple of important aspects. Mentioned technology in how companies today have to adapt to the evolving changes in the technology. One side is to establish your infrastructure, yes, but there is also another challenge which is in the anvil where the technology itself is throwing up challenges in terms of artificial intelligence, and we have a lot of disruptors and disruptions happening at that time. So where do you see, from the future of work perspective, the way the technology landscape is also evolving as much as hybrid model is still taking shape. So how do you, as senior leadership, what is your take on how this technology is going to shape the future of work, and where do the senior management today have to take a decision in terms of accepting and adapting to this technology's evolution? No problem. You can start with it, and
Yep, I would
yes.
start. You're always on a back foot when you're the last one answering, because most of the points are covered. So I'll go first. But yeah, it's a very valid one. And I think here, like you rightly said, technology, it's becoming more and more prominent, more and more. I think it is not a particular sector, but every sector is today dependent on technology for various reasons. And at Adecco Group, we have indeed conducted extensive research on the future of work. Our tagline itself, if you look at it, says that making the future work for everyone. So we have been very actively involved in analyzing the trends and the developments related to changing nature of work, driven by technological advancements and other factors. While there are multiple collision points, let me just pick top three in my view. First, for sure, is the advancements in the artificial intelligence and the automation. That's expected to significantly impact the workforce. The routine and the repetitive tasks which are there today will become, they'll be automated, leading to a redefinition of job roles and the need for upskilling and reskilling to adapt to the changing job market, and changing job market, that too, which is changing so rapidly. The skills that we are talking today, maybe a quarter later, those skills are changing, right? So it has to be very fast. It is also speed that matters there. Second is also technology has enabled remote work to become more and more prevalent. We have seen over the last couple of years, also during COVID, the organizations who were on a digitalization journey, over the last 2-3 years, they have accelerated that roadmap. They have accelerated their plans. So the entire future of work might see a continued emphasis on flexible work arrangements, enabling employees to work from anywhere, leading to a greater work-life balance, but not only restricted to that, but also, since there's no location constraints now, one would also see more and more global teams coming together. There's cross-border teams coming together. And that's one thing that technology is going to enable more and more. And the third is the gig economy that is growing, where the temporary or the freelance workers provide services on a project by project basis or for a particular time, a tenured project. The technological platforms and digital marketplaces play a very crucial role in collecting these employers with the gig workers. So in my view, these are the top three, but of course, there are many others where we talk about the new skills which are coming in, continuous learning and upskilling initiatives will become very, very important, because it's important to stay relevant in the job market. Trainings would be very different. There'll be more AR and VR technologies to transform the entire training, collaboration space. The customer experiences would be different. So those are some of the things, along with, it will also help us in terms of, we are looking at those changes already with the big data coming into picture, the advanced analytics which are there, which are helping organizations, or which are helping businesses to operate with much more efficiencies, with much more decision-making powers based on data. The employee performances, a lot more insights in the performance space, a lot more insights in the engagement and the well-being space, which can in turn, inform a better HR practices for the organization. But these are some of the crux of the things that I see where technology can play a great role. It is already doing, but it will only get accelerated bigger and bigger going forward.
Thank you. You again mentioned the impact of how automation, reskilling, and upskilling. There's a continued evolution, which is the need of the hour. How, Sucharita, probably you can walk us through how do you see you getting buy-in on this? So it is important where there is a elephant in the room where people say the automation is directly sets the ball rolling in terms of the fear. So is my job safe? So in this transitioning phase, which is certainly not seamless, how do you get the buy-in and how do you convey this element to the employees? At the same time, as senior management, also look into the future and arm your organization to be equipped to face the future with more resilience and robustness. Your views?
Yeah. So I agree with Manu, and I resonate completely with her in terms of how she has like put all the aspects of the impact of technology in our lives. So if I have to like just step back and think about and connect everything from the organization that I come from a gaming standpoint, if I have to see some 15 years back, they were like X number of handsets in the market, which were where the engineers had to work on different technologies to port games, not just color rated games, but also black and white handsets to support the black and white handsets. Then from the feature phone, we had to transition into smartphones. So it means like the organization had to make sure that we were keeping our pace faster in terms of meeting the changes in the landscape with the handsets or the games which are happening, which needs to be ported, which also meant that we were proactively looking in terms of how we were upskilling our engineers to meet the technology needs, how we were investing, and how we were making sure that the change management was happening. At the same time, in all these things, what I feel is the HR team, the managers on the ground also play a very important role in this change management. One, the HR team needs to be closely working in partnership with the business to make sure that the strategic goals of the business are being translated into people metrics and goals so that they are aligned closely and they are working at the same pace. And at the same time, managers play an important role because they need to make sure that they are able to help the teams navigate through this change, cascade the expectations of the business priorities, to be able to help the team members to adopt and grow and build in new skills and technologies. Now, with all these changes, obviously, there is a lot of uncertainty and expectations when the employees experience these changes. Like if I have to see from the recent examples, we have started using bots to take care some of our customer care requirements in the organization. But it does not mean that as soon as we started moving into this process, we had like, that obviously the employees would feel a sense of uncertainty, but it also meant that it gave an opportunity for them to relook into their job description, make sure that they build their skills and capabilities to the next level, which would help them to play a bigger role in the organization and teams, which they are expected of, and do away with the day-to-day transactional work. All these things can happen with trainings, open communication, transparency, the role of managers, and just making sure that we have a culture of training and development, which is a continuous process, which is focused on dealing with these changes in the work front. Those are my views about it.
Yes, that was like summarize the what technology is, how it is shaping, and what a senior management you can expect, and when both as a workforce, what you can expect. Now we're talking about workforce. Now, there is the next interesting topic is the Gen Z, as what we call it. They are evolving, their expectations are different. Evolution is a very mild word, and it is in fact more of a disruption the way the expectations are changing in this landscape. So Lakshmipati, from across the sectors, your experience and now leading HR in your organization, how do you see the expectations of Gen Z taking shape? And as senior management, what are your views? We're looking into the future. How would you shape the HR policy or HR landscape of a company? And what can we expect from the management to accept these expectations?
I mean, in the sense like across industries, I think the expectations are more or less the same. I don't see much of a difference. I think they are very vocal. They're able to express themselves. The second thing is maybe because of the exposure they have. It's an internet era. They have access to most of the information and inputs. They're able to express themselves. I've seen across industries where it's a similar context. I don't see much of a difference, especially when it comes to managing the Gen Z workforce. From an organization standpoint, I mean, this generation want to grow faster, and how do we enable them in terms of both career acceleration? We need to define a right career path in terms of show them how they would progress if they do well. At the same time, there is a lot of compensation expectation because again because of the upbringing and the exposure, maybe a mixed exposure of urban as well as semi-urban or tier 1 or tier 2 kind of cities. They would definitely want to go around, explore themselves, so which would need some amount of financial, and they are very they're very independent by design, and they don't want to go and ask their parents and then go for a trip with their friends. They kind of want to be independent, but the fact that they have a lot of choices, which also needs a lot of financial support for them to move around. So it's a combo of both as to how organizations need to evolve themselves in terms of positioning the compensation, at the same time build some accountability followed by a career progression. I think these are the three important factors which are important across sectors. I think the expectations are very similar, plus or minus. There's always a variance of 10% of exceptions on both sides. I think that's my view to it.
So thank you, Lakshmi. You mentioned about the expectations. Yes, certainly compensation is a factor. But another interesting aspect of the Gen Z, what we can say, is about their expressions in social media. So in today's era, which is also where their expressions are directly reflecting on your brand, and they are all there for everyone to see. Manu, probably you can bring in your experience to see as senior management. How do you see the management handling these expectations, and how do you address this disruption, if you can put it out?
Yeah, before I get in there, Anand, and you rightly said that probably they are more active on social media. And I take a cue from my own daughters. I have teenage daughters in that space. And I think, like they rightly said, your learning starts from home. So there's a lot of learning, and they're a lot more active than me when it comes to Instagram and things like that. I'm catching up with them. At Adecco, so every year, we run a program called CEO for a month. In fact, we just concluded one for this year last month. And that offers a very unique opportunity for young individuals fresh out of college, to experience the role of a CEO firsthand. So we select the candidates, they go through a rigorous selection process, get to shadow the actual CEO of Adecco for a month, gaining valuable insights into the leadership, decision-making, the complexities of running a global organization. On the other side, as a company, while going through all the selection process, interacting with these people, having those discussions as a company, we also learn how the new generation views the world of work. Add to this, in Adecco India, more than 70% of our employee base consists of millennials. And so now the Gen Z has also joined the workforce. So they are making waves. They are changing mindsets about how and why we work, how to find fulfillment, how to change the world. And in tech particularly, the impact of this young generation can be even more huge. It's no secret that Gen Z thinks little differently about work. This generation is focused on, in my view, more focused on purposeful, engaging work. They're more focused on well-being, the work-life balance, like Lakshmipati was mentioning, and they're much more risk-taking. While Gen Zs are ambitious, their work mindset is very much focused on well-being. Having things to do outside of work is also very important for them, including the hobbies that they are not related, that's not typically related with any way to the work. So it helps them to reset, feel fresh when they come to work, because you can switch off the work part of your mind. So when you're trying to upskill, they also believe that the upskill should not only be work related, but also other parts of life, but also the social and the personal and other skills, including the physical skills. So it makes them feel that their life does not revolve around work. So that's the key construct of this population, this new workforce that we have started engaging with. When we talk about in the HR space, there are certain changes that as an organization then one has to do. For example, today, if we are going for a for hiring talent or identifying of talent, till yesteryears, it was more of headhunting or job portals and things like that. But today, these job portals could also be running in parallel. But where do you find these people? You find them on the social media. They might not be there on Naukri.com or things like that, or maybe even LinkedIn, but you'll definitely find them on Instagram, right? So those channels are changing. When you are looking out for people, the way you are engaging with them is very different. They don't like the hierarchical or the bureaucratical, the organization. They prefer flat organizations. They would love to walk into a CEO desk right away if they have a question, and they don't want keeping it to themselves. They like more open workforce. So the organizations also, now that more and more organizations are having these workforce, they are also changing their guidelines and the policies, the way they are, the culture is there. So some of these impacts are already there, and it is interesting to get this workforce at your office space.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, talking about the Gen Z, another interesting aspect what we are also looking at is attrition management.
Yep.
In a landscape where startups are far too many, and out of the people, many people who have been fired, there are a lot of people who have started their own, and their ambitions are sky high. So, Sucharita, from where we see this landscape again changing, what are your views? You think how do you evolve a policy or a setup in as a senior HR management for retaining this talent? It is more of experience-centric expectations, and what as Manu and Lakshmipati have brought out, it is no longer about just plain compensation. So, how do you think as HR leader, organizations or corporations, retain this high-performance talents, and what are your views on it?
So I agree with Manu and Lakshmipati, who set the stage in terms of how we are looking at this talent. And I agree with Manu that, learning starts from home. So I have 2 teenage kids who help me to get better at office, because I'm observing and constantly learning from them. Because if I'm able to align myself in terms of how I align and communicate with them, it becomes easy for me when I'm working with different generations in the organization. So when we are talking from an organizational perspective, the expectation of Gen Z is more about a lot of conversations. They're looking at managers to be mentors and coaches. They get immediate feedback. The work is interesting. So all these things have to be considered when we are thinking about designing our performance management processes as to how we are looking, making sure that they are regular check-ins. The managers are skilled appropriately or continue continue to focus on the skills to give a timely and meaningful feedback, they're able to translate interesting work to them so that they are able to have those conversations about their career or what is the path going forward. And at the same time, what I experience with some of the things in terms of Gen Z is like, for them, it's okay if they don't know. It's okay for them to say that I don't know, I quit and I'll figure it out again. They don't see this as like something challenging. So we have to understand that mindset in terms of how are we able to engage with them when they are looking at these kind of expectations. It's all about how do we build a culture which helps them to express as to from where they are coming from. And what is happening is in the organization, and this is my observation, is as an organization, we have employees from different generations. And when we are thinking about doing these kind of change management or trying to accommodate everybody, our system sometimes needs to be fixed because we are still trying to fix things into the older systems in which the job markets worked in. Like, for example, if I have to think about myself, like few years back, I would think that, oh, working, this is how I would have navigated my role or my number of hours or the project in a particular way. But whereas if you have to ask the youngster, the way they would describe the similar situation they are in is completely different. So if I have to see things from my lens, it might not look really encouraging. But if I have to see from their perspective, it's all fine. We have met the expectations. I'm happy. I'm able to balance different aspects. I've learned new skills, and it's okay if we have not figured it out. So it's all about, just being open to suggestions. How do we play an important role in making sure we are like navigating the scenario in an organized and agile way? That is how I would see it.
Thank you, Sucharita. Agility is the key as we take it. Yes. Going forward, we're talking about being agile, and now shifting focus to the senior management themselves. As both of you have brought out, you have started learning from home. So probably it is time to pick the brains of Lakshmi Pati. Now talking about evolution of senior leadership again. So we have moved from a large corporate to a high growth organization. So from your views, how do you see the senior leadership requirement to learn or upskill or reskill in this changing scenario? And what do you recommend the senior leadership should focus on? And your views on recommendations for the senior leadership, particularly on upskilling, or what kind of a path they should be looking into the future?
Generally, growing organizations are very aggressive by design, and they will continue to do so. Even if you look at most of the senior managements from the startup ecosystem to a growing organization, irrespective of industry context, they are generally aggressive by design. Whereas a matured organization are generally slow in terms of decision making. They would want to evaluate the pros and cons before they conclude on next steps. I think this pattern will still continue to be there. Generally, the high growth organizations are mindful. They keep their eyes on the market space. They would want to explore and exploit every possible opportunity to generate revenues. I think this trend will still continue to be there. But the only thing is, what is important is the percentage of success. For example, if I pick a particular space that I see a possibility of good growth in the next couple of years, we intend to invest into building that skill within the organization. If that doesn't turn out to be a blockbuster, then how do I sustain my investments that I have made? It's always tough to make those decisions in today's context. And this is where in a market scenario like this year is a tough year. It is important that while it is good to keep ourselves open to the market space, it is also important to understand and assess our financial balance sheets or profit P&Ls for the next couple of years, and then make the right decisions. The decision making on every step in a bad year like this is going to be key for high growth organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Talking of bad year, probably the next question to Manu would be, in this landscape, in this evolving year where geopolitics and the disruptions are there in almost in many multiple forms, started with COVID and it's still continuing in one form or the other. How do you see the hiring and the HR systems take shape looking into the future? And in the short term and the long term, how do you see this changing or evolving? Probably add a ready mix of startup culture. There is enough dimensions from which the challenges are below. So for as a senior management, especially in the staffing industry, how do you see this taking shape looking into the future?
Yeah, and I think it's a very mixed views when it comes to the hiring space in this year. While there are certain sectors which are impacted, there are some sectors who are actually doing well. So when we talk about the future of work, it will see a continued shift towards digitalization in the hiring process. Like at Adecco, we have invested in advanced technologies such as AI-powered ATS, which is applicant tracking systems, the data analytics to streamline the recruitment process, to improve the candidate matching and enhance the overall hiring experience. We recognize that the growing demand for a remote and flexible work options and have adapted our service offerings to cater to both employers which are seeking remote talent and workers looking for flexible job opportunities. So at the job markets, as these job markets are evolving, Adecco is placing more emphasis on upskilling and reskilling initiatives to prepare workers for emerging roles and bridge the skill gap. Now, this also includes our own sister brand, which is LHH. It also includes partnerships with educational institutes and the technology providers to offer relevant training programs. So the future of work is likely to see a continued push towards diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Adecco is playing a pivotal role in promoting diverse hiring practices, ensuring equal opportunities for all candidates. In fact, if I talk about, if I look at some stats internally in Adecco India, we are 51-49, which is 51% female population, 49 male population. But it's not only towards gender now, it is going beyond gender, towards different nationalities, background, beliefs. The recent one being we have signed an MOU with DGM for veteran hiring, where we are looking at how do we place some of the veterans who have retired and they are joining the corporate world. So those kind of programs, it is becoming more and more diverse and inclusive workplaces, and how we see those kind of hirings happening in the corporate world. We are also very well positioned to leverage our staffing expertise to address the growing demand for the gig workers and the temporary talent that we just spoke about. More and more this millennials and the Gen Zs are looking at freelancing and the gig kind of workforce. And we continue to develop platforms and solutions to connect the employers with the on-demand workers effectively. And we are also increasingly relying on data-driven decision-making and data analytics to make informed decisions about talent acquisition, informed decisions about workforce planning, informed decisions about employee engagement. This enables us to provide better solutions for the clients and the candidates alike. So in response to the changing societal expectations also, there is one is also looking at how to integrate the sustainability and the corporate social responsibility principles into our hiring practices. And I see many organizations also moving in that direction, which are ensuring ethical and environmentally responsible workforce solutions. So as a bottom line, we constantly adapt our business model to offer more like you rightly said, more agile workforce solutions to clients. This could involve providing temporary work or project-based or contract workers to meet the changing demands of the job market. So these are some of the things that we are looking in the hiring space across various sectors in India.
Thank you. Thank you. It was quite insightful coming from a person who's actively into the hiring. And this is the elephant in the room today as we speak about in this today's age, how is the landscape going to take shape in future? Thank you for your views. Now we have addressed the hiring landscape and yes, evolution of technology and Gen Z expectations. Sucharita, as Director of People Practices, you also are adapting, managing a global team, and you're heading practices across 2 continents to say. So, looking into the future, how do you see this globalization versus nationalization take shape? And as a senior leadership, what do you see the management's thought process or decision making should be in this aspect? So, probably your views on that.
Yeah. So, Anand, see, in my opinion, I see that our organization has a combination of both. All companies have a global strategy for finding high skills and cost-effective labor to meet their business priorities and skills and which location that they need to tap in. We have seen the emergence of micro market analysis that reveals the geolocated pools of skills. So, for example, the companies are looking at particular geographies for particular skill sets. It also means that as an organization like EA operates in more than 24 locations across the organization, it means that it has to ensure that it is maintaining the purpose and beliefs of our company, which it stands for, our culture, our business priorities. But at the same time, when we are working with a particular location, we also have to make sure that we are aligning with the local things which resonates with the local culture, and at the same time making sure our policies and practices are not in conflict with the local practices, right? So it means that it's maintaining the flavor of how a global company needs to operate, and at the same time respecting the local sensitivities. Now, when Manu was sharing her viewpoints, she also brought in an interesting point in terms of making sure our workforce is diverse. It's not just from a gender perspective, but also about various aspects, wherein we have people from different nationalities, language, age, culture, background, which are part of the workforce. So how do we make sure that our systems, practices, our viewpoints, our culture resonates and accommodates all these differences within the organization? So in my opinion, all these things are very important, and it helps the organization to ensure that they are working on all these practices to keep pace with the changes, and make sure that we are learning and growing and constantly evolving, and having those systems and policies in places to make sure that we are adhering to what is required from a company's a good culture standpoint.
Thank you, Sucharita. And we all have, it is in a hunky-dory world, everything is good and we are having our practices and things in place. But come a conflict, then we will see the reality of the situation, and that is when the senior management's, not just the role, but the character also comes into play. So Lakshmipati, just a quick question on how do you see the conflict management tools and processes which we have today taking shape into the future? And also we have the entire ready mix of millennials, Gen Zs, expectations, attrition management and all those. So how do you see the conflicts or internal conflicts in the organization being resolved, the traditional approach versus what is it in the future? If you can just give us some insights.
Been like 22 years that I've been working, nothing has changed. It's a tough question.
That's a good way to start. Yes, that is right.
It is contextual again. I don't think so there is a straight answer to this question. I think they will still continue to be there, and how to navigate around all these barricades is how we differentiate ourselves as leaders, I would say. I don't think so there is a straight answer to this. It's our luck. We can't choose leaders or colleagues, and we have to learn to live in whichever form and shape, good, bad, ugly. We have to adapt and then move on. That's the way I see it.
It is a very succinct way of putting that the leadership should always not just be agile in the technology and other aspects also, but yes, the conflicts also have their own shape and form. So we need to be adaptive enough to resolve them. We are into the final few minutes. Probably I'll request the panelists to give a little final shape to the conversation in terms of, we have seen the various aspects of the future of work which we have discussed, study from technology to the expectations of the employees and how policies of the companies are making their own plans for infrastructure and managing into the future. As a senior management, how you see the future, the roadmap into the future lead, and anything specific which you feel today's leaders in the who is watching this show and who have high aspirations to become senior leadership themselves. So what should be their key takeaways from today's discussion? How do they shape policies and practices in their workplace into the future? Probably
I will bucket it into two different buckets, I would say. One is, as an employer, we need to provide windows for upskilling the workforce.
Yeah.
I don't think so there's any difference between when I started my career. I also had to learn a lot of things as I have progressed from different career paths in terms of level up. You have to learn. But my learning opportunities were limited when I started my career. Today, I think thanks to online, thanks to COVID, the online ecosystem, the e-learning platforms have really evolved very well. The kind of content that we have today, organizations will have to invest. It is up to the individuals to pick. From an employee standpoint, the resources are available at an org level. How you would want to leverage and upskill yourself and grow in terms of both personally as well as professionally. That's the way I see it.
Thank you, Nishit. Anu, your closing views on this topic. Also, you can give us a little insight as senior leadership. How do we sustain or improve the diversity quotient and be more inclusive in our making the workforce as experience for one and all?
Yeah.
Closing views on this.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand. And I think as we look ahead to the future of work, there's several significant changes that are expected to shape the landscape. I think one needs to keep a close eye on, if I were to summarize the top three, then it would be in the advancements in the automation and artificial intelligence. I think the integration of automation and AI technology is expected to revolutionize the entire workplace, the robotics, machine learning, AI-driven systems, and they will continue to improve the efficiencies and the productivities across various industries. One should explore opportunities to implement some of these automations in the systems. So, your repeated tasks are taken care. You have much more streamlined workflows. Take help of these systems to enhance the entire decision-making process. So that's one. The second thing, in my view, is also the remote work and the digital collaboration. In my view, that's on a rise. COVID-19 also, it accelerated the adoption of remote work and digital collaboration tools. So in yesteryears, there were organizations who were completely a no to a digital or a remote workplace. Today, they have accepted it because that was the way of work for some time for some of us. So there's a lot more open mindset towards it. And I think we will see the future of work will likely to continue embrace some of these flexible work arrangements and remote work options. One should recognize the benefits of remote work in terms of talent, in terms of cost saving, in terms of employee satisfaction, and strike the right balance which is required for the organization. And third, I think there's a lot more emphasis on the employee well-being and the mental health. The future of work will place a greater emphasis on employee well-being and mental health. The organizations will recognize the importance of supporting their employees' physical and emotional well-being to drive productivity and to drive retention. Also, from a senior executive point of view, one should prioritize creating a healthy and inclusive workplace, which promotes the work-life balance, offers mental health resources, flexible policies, wellness initiatives, etc. Talking about inclusive work environment, and coming to the point that you were mentioning about diverse, how do we create a diverse and inclusive workforce? I think it is a lot more top-down approach. It is at a leadership level that one needs to be first open. And if, let's say today in my team, if there is a role open, I would definitely ask for the options, the candidates that I would want to see. I would want to ask for a diverse, after which it is the best one, which is best suited for the job role, but at least from an option perspective or from a evaluation perspective, there should be equal opportunities to be provided for the diverse workforce, and there has to be a lot more openness in terms of creating that inclusive work environment at the organization. And I think this is more from a management point of view. It has to move top down, and that's how the leaders also have to walk the talk. It's very easy said that in the organization this is the mix that we should have, but if in your own team you do not have the mix, I don't think that is going to fall well with the rest of the team members in the organization. So you got to walk the talk and bring in this diverse workforce, which the statistics say that there's a lot more productive teams with a diverse workforce. If you have a diverse workforce in your team, the teams are a lot more productive. Your revenues are better, and this is all stats that are talking. It's not my own opinion, but these are what the reports say. Yeah.
You're spot on in terms of how the leadership has to walk the talk. That is where the buck starts and stops. So thank you, Manu, for those views. And building on that, Sucharita, again, from the senior leadership management, we hold a master's in psychology. So I take the liberty to probably extend the question from your closing views on how we have seen how Manu spoke about the mental health and well-being, psychological well-being, which is also a very important aspect now. How senior managements have take shape of the decision making. So where do you see this large-scale hiring, firing, this evolution which is happening, which is having a toll on the people's health? And looking into the future, how do you think the senior management should probably view this, or anything, your views on how companies and the HR policies per se should accommodate this or should take some cognitive actions for such a scenario looking into the future? So these disruptions, I don't think we have in our hand to control. So how do you see the management arming themselves to face this uncertainties into the future?
I think last but not the least, most of the points are covered by Lakshmipati and Manu. But adding on to it, what I see, what I would like to say is like as an organization, I think over a period of time, I've seen in terms of in our organization, how we have constantly tried to put in practices, policies, and how we have evolved our systems and practices, whether it is creating a focus on employee wellness, well-being. It is equally important for as employees, we need to make sure that they are able to transition through these changes, whether it is personal life or professional life. They stay in terms of our benefits, which has been extended to the employees, have constantly been evolved. There are a lot of things which have been introduced to factor in the mental wellness and the physical wellness for our employees. Then at the same time, in terms of learning, it is also important for all of us to stay relevant in terms of the skill set enhancement by constantly learning. It is not possible, like given all the changes that has happened in these 3 or 4 years, we have moved more in terms of self-learning approach, whether most of our curriculum has moved online, where we have encouraged a culture of learning, and we always encourage the culture of learning and training and development. But how we are doing it today has changed from classroom to a hybrid model. We continue to do the same thing. Then in terms of how do we help make sure that we are setting the culture, it also means that being like a good example and practicing what we are preaching is also very important for all the people, like whether they are managers in the leadership team. So it's very important that we are able to demonstrate those behaviors which can be modeled, which we like showcase that this is how we just need to navigate and all. There is nothing like, and in all these things, what I would suggest is be happy, take every day as a new day, go with a positive spirit, and then I'm sure that we all would be able to navigate whatever uncertainties come in our life. That's what I would say.
It is a very profound statement which you make, and it is good to have a closing remark like that on a topic like this, looking into the future. Be happy and approach every day like a new day. Future is just a roadmap, and you enjoy the present. Future will take care of itself. Thank you for closing remarks, Sucharita. Before we close the discussion, we have some questions which the audience have asked. So let me just present those questions to you, and I'll probably just ask panelists a question, but if somebody has better insight, you can probably add on to that. And the questions are open; there is not specific to anyone. First question is from Mr. Kapil. He says, "How do we see the HR process to culture being evolved in the last decade, and do we see any drastic change in the short term, which is agnostic to the industry?" He's asking in general. So probably taking cue from the past, how do you look into the future?
I think I'll take a cue on that, maybe lead that. There are a lot of changes that have happened over the last one decade. Some of them we have already spoken during the session. But apart from the technology that we spoke about, we have seen the technology evolve, and what has happened in the first 50 years, it probably doubled, tripled in the last 10 years. And I think in the last 3 years, it has accelerated even more what we saw in the last one decade. So that's definitely one of the changes that we have seen, which has evolved in the HR practices from a policy perspective, etc. And depending on that technology, there are many other activities which are technology driven. Like, for example, the analytics that we are talking today is much more predictive. We were very reactive in the past. The HR databases that we were talking about, the practices that we were talking about, the employee engagements, they were all very reactive to some extent. Today, we are becoming more predictive, and hence we are able to do things much more proactive way. There are a couple of other things that are that have changed over the past years and the yesteryears. One, I think we are much more cognizant of the social responsibility, the corporate social responsibility is also on a positive way. It's not just a tick mark these days in the organizations, but one is very, very consciously working towards that. That's one very good change that I see. The benefits that we are talking about, the employee benefits of the yesteryears are very different to the employee benefits that we talk about today. We also spoke about the millennials and the Gen Z. The benefits that they look for is very different. So you got to constantly evolve your practices, your HR practices, and the policies and the benefits that you will extend to your employees. So that's one change that I'm seeing. Career development, I think we spoke about training. Training was always there, but the way we are doing the training, like Sucharita mentioned, is very different, but it's also very agile, and it's also gig focused. So unlike the past years where we had a specific type of a workforce, we had permanent placement, and then we had contract staff. But today that pie, the workforce pie, every business is talking about permanent placement. They are talking about contract staff. They're talking about gig. They're talking about those freelancers. So every type of a workforce has a space in that pie chart. So that's another change that one has seen. So in my mind, these are some of the things, apart from the things that we have already spoken about, the inclusive workforce, technology, hybrid workforce, well-being, etc. But some of these changes that I see, which have happened in the last 10 years, and it is here to stay and only evolve more and more as we move forward.
I think adding to what Manu said, Manu, you missed out on an important aspect. One is like hybrid work model, which was not there, which is like working from home, having that flexibility to make a choice whether I need to use my commute time to attend a meeting versus just be stuck in the traffic jam, or just finish my work early so that I'm able to use that time constructively for something else. Yeah, I mean, I second whatever you have said, Manu. Yes, that's all good. Yeah.
One more drastic change, in short term will be, at some point in time, HR was considered to be a custodian of processes. I think adding to what Manu said, the kind of analytics that we are able to build, basis various insights that we get from multiple business verticals within HR ecosystem, we are able to give a strategic insight for leaders to take decisions. Now HR is progressing from a process custodian to a value-driven function. This is the way I see it in short term. I've started to see a trend where CEOs have started to accept HR as part of the leadership team. When I say leadership team, in the sense like in terms of decision making at a critical phases of business. That's something that I have seen, and I think it is only increasing in terms of the percentage acceptance by CEOs and CFOs across organizations or industries.
Thank you, Vishnu. That was a very crisp statement when we said that HR is moving from being a process custodian to be actively participating in strategic decision making. So there is a huge evolution looking into the future. Thank you for your views on that. The next question is from Neha. She says that the question is directly to you, Lakshmipati, is in terms of Gen Z, they want to grow faster, but the IT industry is kind of clogged very much from the middle management roles. And moving upwards is very difficult. So keeping them happy instead of clear goals setting is very difficult. So they eventually get frustrated and then usually they leave. So what can be done to prevent this churn? And though it is addressed to Lakshmipati, I'm sure the fair amount of insights from other panelists also would add value to this question. Lakshmipati, can we start from this? Because I just get addressed to you.
Few of my friends, including my SB classmates, have asked me this question.
Seem to be a very favorite for this question. So here you go.
It's a tough question. I'm sure my other two friends who are there on the call, I'm sure their batchmates also would have asked them the same question, because the moment you are one HR person in your batch, these questions are atypical, I would say. Again, it's I can't give a straight answer. For example, I've been able to manage Gen Z successfully, being part of my team. Under my leadership, there are, like, as we speak, 4 or 5 young kids from fresh out of college work with me. My approach towards them is completely different when I actually have conversations with my senior leaders. Though they consider me a very senior person in terms of hierarchy, stature, whatever it is, I don't do that with them. It's like I go sit with them, I have lunch with them, I have these conversations. I make them feel inclusive in terms of the way I operate. Maybe that's probably one thing that clicked so far in the last 6-7 years. I was able to manage myself very well. Contextually, what is the nature of work that you do, Neha, is something, probably if you can ping me offline, I will be able to have a little more insights before I give a meaningful response. What I can give is a very generic response at this point in time. I'm more than happy to contribute, offline, in case if you need any further info. I need more insights for me to give a response. Let me put it back.
I think I can just add on to what you have said in a very generic way. When we are talking about career development or moving, promotion does not mean from only way of getting promoted or only way in terms of career progression. Is not just moving in levels vertically, but also at the same time investing your skills and capabilities to take up additional responsibilities and moving laterally. That would also help the person, whoever is navigating their career development in the organization, to build the skills and capabilities, and there's a readiness when the role opens up. I completely agree that we do have people who are in the middle management level. There is no answer, right or wrong answers, but when it comes to career development, this is what has worked for me, and this is how I would navigate when somebody asks me this question is, for me, career progression was not always moving above vertically, but it is also expanding your responsibilities. In that way, you get opportunities to do more interesting work, which helps you to enhance your experience and your scope of work.
I mean, just to add to what Sucharita said, a couple of strategies that I have adopted is also on similar lines, wherein I gave them a clear career progression of next couple of years. I don't want to talk about 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I do not know if I would be part of the organization to even commit something like that. So I go with the short-term strategy of 2 to 3 years, how we would want to progress them both horizontally as well as vertically. I mean, what Sucharita said is a horizontal progression also is a progression. Yes, I was able to manage that horizontal progression, but what we need to do in this context of horizontal progression or vertical progression is set their KRAs well. They need to understand what they're expected to deliver. If you deliver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 A, B, C, D, E, F, then you move to one level, either horizontally or vertically. These kind of expectations, if we can clearly have a conversation across the table, give them the trust that if they do well, yes, there is a possibility that I can grow horizontally or vertically. Yes, this strategy did work for me in a couple of instances. The curious cats in the in the table, they would want to always know how they would want to progress. It did work for me also. Yes. But it needs an open and honest conversation.
Yeah. I think I completely resonate with what Lakshmipati and Sucharita has mentioned. For me, I would just summarize that it is very important to stay relevant, especially when we are talking about IT industry. The landscape is very dynamic and it is changing very, very fast. So there were days when I was leading a IT landscape from a hiring perspective. And they were, we were hiring for Angular 5, Java Angular 5. And by the time I hired a person, it was already Java Angular 7 and 8 talking. So it's fast. It's in a quarter, the skills are changing. The modules that are required are upgrading faster than what we are thinking. So I think it is what is important is not to only look at lateral, like Sucharita mentioned, also to see both vertical, lateral there. But irrespective of whichever direction you're moving, I think it is important to stay relevant in this dynamic landscape that we're talking about.
Thank you, Manu. You have been part of the tech industry before your transition into the HR landscape. So your views of IT industry would both be first-hand, and you have seen the evolution taking shape. And so when you talk about how it changes in the quarter, I think a lot of our viewers will resonate. So we have a last question on the panel today is from Mr. Prahlad. It is estimated that the creative jobs are going to be eaten by the AI. I'm sure he's feeling. So how real is this threat? So he seems to be having a very crisp and direct question. So the elephant in the room. How do we address that?
2004, there was a movie called I, Robot. It's a sci-fi fiction movie. When I was watching that, I said, wow, is this how the future is expected to be? And one of the reasons what, Will Smith doesn't believe in robot in that particular movie is that he meets with an accident and the robot decides that the percentage possibility of Will Smith surviving is very high compared to a young child, who could have been saved. But according to the robot, the child's percentage possibility of survival in that particular accident is minimal. So the robot chooses to decide to save Will Smith. And according to Will Smith, the child should be saved. The child is too young to lose her life. I think AI is that tool. I still believe that AI is an effective tool, but I don't think so it's a real threat. For example, if I'm a creative person doing a creative role, it gives me the right insights. It makes me more effective in terms of my decision making. The machine learning is something that will continue to learn, but it can never exceed a human brain. Human brain is always creative. I think humans will continue to evolve with the right decision making. It allows me to make my decisions much more accurate than what it used to be in the past. That's my view to AI ML, both inclusive.
Thank you, Lakshmi. That reminds me one of the daughters. Sorry. No, I would just make a small pointer here because I remember a very good insight which Professor gave us was in future, it is not about AI replacing people. It is more about managers who use AI replacing managers who don't use AI. So I feel that was quite a very apt way of putting it out. But your views on that, what you just added.
But I have a take on that. Definitely, I would say there would be a shift in job demands. While if we talk about AI and automation, it will lead to automation of certain tasks, which is currently done by humans. So it will reduce the demand for human labor in those specific roles. But as a result, one might see a decline or become certain opportunities might decline in an industry where automation can efficiently replace human work. But on the other hand, my view, and I completely echo what Lakshmipati mentioned, that AI and automation will also create new opportunities in the industry related to AI development, which is also very, very creative in nature. One could talk about data annotation, algorithm training, machine learning models, the validation models, etc. These are specialized tasks which require human input to enhance the AI capability. So AI still would continue to be dependent on human inputs for it to keep enhancing itself, to keep regenerating itself. So that would be my take. I think there would definitely be certain shift in it, but it would not definitely not to be taken as a threat.
Yeah. Yes. And just adding to what both of them are saying from an organizational standpoint, it is also about the cost of investment which is required, right? The companies which are going to adopt this new technologies and AI mode. Right now, it's very expensive, but as we are going forward, by the time the organizations are figuring it out, the level of investments required for all these things, it would be some time. And again, just echoing the other sentiment, would AI be able to effectively work with the lower human intervention, it is not possible at this stage. So obviously, it would open up new skills and opportunities, like Manu said. So it's all about wait and watch.
Yes, wait and watch is the word. Yes, looking into the future. We have to wait, and we can barely wait to watch how the future beholds. Thank you, panelists. Like, it is coming to the end. There is one last question, which just to close the conversation, it is a very generic question. There is a lot of emphasis on transparency and in decision making, especially in the HR landscape. And like the past, the impact and the expectations of transparency is growing into the future. So how do you see this having an impact on the decision making as a leadership, in terms of accountability also, and in terms of motivating the people to do what they love to do and staying relevant at the same time? Sucharita, may your views.
Okay,
Yes,
so if I have to reiterate your question, you're saying what should be the level of transparency that needs to be adopted?
Yes, you can say that, not level of transparency. It is also how you decision making into the in being transparent, especially in today's era where you cannot just get away by saying it was my decision and it is a be all end all. So the transparency is a factor which accountability also gets attached to. So how do you see in the future this taking shape?
I think it's equally important irrespective of what era we are in, because transparency and all, it is a basic foundation for building trust in an organization. And as an organization, when they are making these decisions, it's also important that the leadership team is effectively cascading what the expectations are in a clear and transparent way, so that it sets the stage for others to follow. So if we are not able to do that, then there is always a sense of uncertainty, and people don't know what has to be done to meet it. So I would say that irrespective of where we are, these are the basic things that operating processes that every organization should be adopting. That's my viewpoint. Yeah.
I think I can just add on to that. Today, we also spoke about it today in the last 1 hour, when you are having a mixed workforce, which is also a lot inclusive, and you are also having millennials and Gen Zs in your workforce. They look for transparency around them in terms of if a particular decision is done, why it has been done. So as a leader, I think it is what is important is that when a decision is being made, you have those relevant stakeholders involved across various departments, across various levels. So that there's a lot more buy-in when you are implementing a decision. Your implementation and your rollout plans are much more accepted, and much more ease of execution is there. Definitely, it is not about being transparent and having everyone to decide what we need to do. But it is important that you keep those feedback doors open. It is important that you have a 360-degree of feedback channels, so that you hear what the organization is looking for, and make it a lot more inclusive when there is a decision making. And how do you do that is through transparency and trust.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
We have
Just to add on to what both of them said, I think we have always been transparent, but the degree at which we are sharing inputs have increased. I think it's always been transparent. I don't think so there's anything that you can do under the carpet, irrespective of any type of organization. To what degree or percentage of inputs that needs to be shared across the board was something very different from the way I started my career with Semester. That's it. It's always been the case. Right people were always there in terms of decision making. It's always been transparent. Let me put it that.
So, thank you, all the panelists. And just to sum up, we had a very enriching decisions, how the work or the future of work, when looking into the future we see, and what do we have to do as senior management, as leadership? Either it could be scaling up your infrastructure to equip for the technology which demands us to have a different hybrid mode of work to accommodate the expectations of the Gen Zs. And how do you have a very collaborative approach, get more buy-in to your decisions from people? It is no longer that the earlier mode of traditional model of working is going to come back. This hybrid mode of work from home being part of our expectations from work is going to stay for a while and probably be an integral part of our decision making going into the future. We spoke about some agile work solutions, which is important, that it is agility in the decision making and in the organization for adapting into the future is very important. And we all got from your work experience, gave us a great insight on how the hiring space and the landscape is going to change into the future, which is going to be technology driven, and how technology is going to give us the confidence to segregate our decision making in a more analytical way and a data driven way, where we know which sectors are thriving. We just don't get directly bogged down by the market is down or market is up. It is more decision making in terms of we can focus how and where we can still tap into the market and hire from the workforce which we have. We also spoke about how we need to create a windows for upskilling our workforces, and a lot of discussions on how we have to keep our employees' holistic well-being and the work-life balance in our mind. How a flexible culture is important for us to have that fact of organization's intent translated into the workers' well-being and also the efficiency of organization. We spoke about diversity. Yes, we need the management has to walk the talk. That goes without saying, and you need to practice what you preach. And as what Sucharita profoundly put it out, we need to be happy every day and approach every day as a new day and walk into the future with a profound sense of happiness. Thank you, panelists, and it was a great opportunity for us all. And I, for one, was a very intrigued listener, having a ringside view of some great views coming from all these panels. And I should thank all of you to taking out your time in this weekend to have this great insightful discussion. I thank ISB for facilitating this senior leadership series and also giving us all an opportunity to hear from the eminent leaders from the industry. Yeah, like all good things, this must also come to an end. And thank you. We enter how we see into the future, and we hope that we see in the next edition of Industry Dialogue, a brand new topic with more insights from the industry leaders. And again, thank you, all of you, and I wish you all a very happy weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anand.
Thank you so much.
I would say very well moderated, Anand. Thank you so much, and lovely to share the stage with Sucharita and Lakshmipati. Thanks, Thomas, for putting this together.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Manu. Thank you, Sucharita. Thank you, Lakshmipati. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot.
so much. Thank you, Anand. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.